Hello and welcome to the DVLA Hate Podcast, episode 9, the Pictish Revolt. Last episode, we went over the three sons of Northumbria and the Celtic Church and the politics between both of them.
Yeah, Oswald's main enemy lay in the south, and Mercia were an expanding English kingdom lay under the rule of a mighty warlord called Penda. I swear the name Penda comes like 100 times up
Yeah.
in this period of time. It was Penda who'd helped Cadwallon, against our old friend, against Edwin, and it was he who now challenged Oswald for the overlordship of southern and midland Britain. In August 642, either Oswestry in Shropshire. This is the English names aren't even merry a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like Slopshire and Goodinshire, or some other site in the English Midlands. Oswald was defeated in a great battle with the Mercian king and his numerous allies, most of whom were Britons from Wales. I'm sure the Welsh will go on with the English after this. Oswald was slain, and in an act of terrible savagery, his corpse was ritually dismembered and displayed on stakes, as becomes popular in the UK. His over-kingship of Northumbria died with him, and the kingdom again split into its two constituent parts. Oswald's younger brother Oswiu became king of Bernicia, but it was in no position to extend his rule. And at the same time, the dynasty of Deria reasserted itself in the person of Oswine, the son of a cousin of Edwin. But both kings had little choice, basically because of the sway of Penda. After his victory over Oswald, he became the most powerful ruler in Britain. In December of the following year, in the valley of the River Carron, near Falkirk, Domhnall Breck, the guy from Kennel Breck, something like that.
Yeah.
The Dalriadan fella, dies in battle against the Britons of Ecgfith, and this actually takes place roughly in the area near Bannockburn. I know it's in Falkirk, but I was reading, and it's kind of in that. I think it's next to the Bannockburn. The burn.
Every
Job
big
burns,
battle in
burns
Scotland
forever.
happened around Bannockburn.
It's the only place they really fight a battle either, because the rest of it's all hills.
Yeah.
The Britons were led by their king Owen, son of Beli, whose defeats of the Scots made him, that's definitely not pronounced Beli, made him the strongest ruler in the north and a potential rival to Penda. Quick little, asterisk here. Almost every king of Ecgfith / Strathclyde is, wait, we don't even make it Strathclyde, is going to be called Owen. They cannot get enough of the name Owen.
There's a lot of Owens in like the area still today, innit?
Yeah. The political relationship between Owen and Penda isn't known, and there's not any record of them challenging each other in battle, but the Mercian king still had unfinished business with his Northumbrian neighbours.
I've realised I've read your intro.
Yeah, I just went with it.
Should you want to read the next bit as well, and then I'll catch up with the pink stuff?
Yep, sure. Welcome to the History of Me Talking podcast. The Historia Britonum adds that the richest yielded upon. Oh my, wielded.
Wait, give me a second. There's something at the door.
History of the Pause podcast. Should I still read? No, I guess in silence. Okay, what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to hijack the podcast and we're going to have a History of the Talking About Tactics podcast. Interestingly enough, in the book Battle on Tactics, A Theory of Victory in Battle by B.A. Friedman, shout out B.A. Friedman, he denotes 9 tenets for tactics because it's hard to make them into a science.
Who needs a fucking alarm when you get your full family to find my iPhone?
This is incredible.
Sorry, I'm back. What happened?
Nothing. You missed nothing.
Right,
I'll just pick it up again.
Yeah.
The History Britonum adds that the riches yielded up by, I've messed it up for the second time, yielded up by Oswin were distributed by Penda among the kings of the Britons, who were either Welshmen or Northerners or a mixture of both, just not the English. Jude is usually identified as the ancient fortress at Stirling, known to be as Urbs Guide. I'm not doing this again. Many historians see Guide and Lud as variants of the same name, and this happens with almost everything in Brittonic. A Brittonic place name, by the way, which is supplanted in later centuries by Strivelin, which I think you can see eventually becomes Stirling. In the early historic period, this stronghold, as it did forever, basically, and theoretically still would, was an imposing position befitting the abode of a ruler or a high royal status, and it basically connects Scotland into the Lowlands and the Highlands. The immediate area under the Citadel's control was the region of Manua, the likely homeland of the Meaty, our old friends from a little while ago. One possible context for the tradition preserved in the Historia Brittonum sees the Meaty, who can be identified as Britons, and probably were Britons, as allies of Penda in his campaigns against Northumbria. The fortress of Stirling, we'll go with Stirling, was perhaps being utilised by the Mercian king as a suitable venue for his dealings with Oswiu, and another possible context envisages Oswiu holding power in Stirlingshire, having the area of Stirlingshire, having wrested it by force from the Clyde Britons, whose victory on the Carron in 643 had made them overlords of the area. But we again, welcome to the history if we don't know, because we can't really know for sure.
Although the Picts evidently played no part in this political. Although the Picts played no part in really this, from what we can see from the no records we have, the Mercian king did bring a huge army close to the southern border, despite their. I'm retarded. Okay. Although the Picts evidently played no part in all of this, they cannot have been unaffected by the massive Mercian king and his army close southern border. Despite the early fostering of Ecgfith, they had no obligation to actually help the other family members because they went to Dalriada and their chuds, and may simply have acknowledged Penda as the supreme overlord of Britain. As far as we know, to be fair, that's all we know. But we don't even know that. Oswiu had little contact with Pictavia because he didn't go to Pictavia. I don't get why this is important. He didn't go to Pictavia. He was in Dalriada. He had any allies with Dalriada. And even though the Picts had, at this time, maybe had good relations, it's not like they actually wanted to help each other.
No.
His nephew, Talarcan, was in every significant sense a Pict, and may have felt no affinity with his English uncles, just like people in the borders. In any case, he had not yet attained the kingship, which was held at the time by Talarc, son of Gwyde, whom Talarcan succeeded in 653, the same names again and again and again. Since the name Talarcan means little tailor, there is a strong possibility that these two kings were close related by blood. Perhaps Talarcan's mother was and Talarc were brother and sister, with the sister's son succeeding his uncle to the kingship. This scenario fits well with the theory of matrilineal succession, in which royal power was regularly inherited by the son of the king's sister. The absence of the king's mother The absence of any hostile relations between Pictavia and Mercia at this time suggests that Talarc, son of Gwyde, wisely chose a non-aggression policy against Penda's northern affairs. Had he chosen to join the Britons as Penda's military ally, the twin kingdoms of Northumbria would almost would have been crushed. Undoubtedly would have been crushed and
let us dream.
Exiled and extinguished. Maybe we'll have a larger Pictavia.
There's a history where this happens and the good guys win, but unfortunately, this is not to be.
The barbarians.
The Talarcan's accession in 653 placed a half English king over the Picts. Again, wow, Scottish history as a whole. I know this is the history of the Picts. It's so uncreative because this just happens again. Basically, all of this just happens again. But this was not necessarily advantageous for Oswiu, because some historians regard Talarcan as a puppet imposed on Pictavia by his Mercian uncle. But this doesn't make any sense, especially according to the evidence. Because Oswiu was an ambitious king who hoped to regain the paramount status formerly enjoyed by Oswald and Ecgfith, but in 653, his capacity for intervention in the north was hindered significantly by, Penda. Oswiu mustered an army for a power struggle with Oswine, the king of the neighbouring Daria, but his primary concern was the dark shadow cast by the Mercian ruler, who was evil or something. I don't know. I don't know why he's the white shadow. There's a narrative here. It's therefore difficult to imagine him divert military forces from his southern frontier to foist a puppet king on the Picts. Yeah, it doesn't. He's got this menace, this genuine menace on his border, and he goes, what if we just gave the Picts a puppet?
If it was EU4, it'd make sense, but
Yeah.
it's real life, so it doesn't.
No. Atalican had ruled as a Bernician stooge. His uncle would have just diffused the hostility between the Picts and the Scots. But anyway, this culminates in a battle at Strathare in 654, and although we don't know how this goes, I would put a
The
fiver on
Picts
it being the
won.
Picts. Yeah. During his childhood exile, Oswiu had been baptised in Iona, shock, and his family had been in peaceful relations with Kenil and Gabrain for many years thereafter. I can't wait for the first Irish comment we get. Like actually, it's Kenil and...
Actually, I've been looking at the analytics, and we've got another Irish guy from Lisbon, which is Floyd, and one from Belfast, and we've got one in Ireland from two from Dublin. So we do
Okay,
have
well...
at least 4 Irish people.
Okay, we'll do it, but then you like to help with pronunciation.
Wait. 2 good ones and 2 bad ones. I won't tell you what ones are which.
Yeah. I in no way endorse that statement on this.
I endorse it and don't endorse it at the same time. It's one of those. You make your own beliefs of what. I'm joking. They're still people.
If anyone could throw us a bone on pronunciation, that would be great.
not
We won't take
Carbon.
it, but you can't say that. You surely can't say that.
But listen. If we can slag ourselves and the English and the Welsh, the Irish aren't safe here. The Irish aren't safe in this podcast episode. Just you wait till a bit later down the line. But
Yeah, that's sort of the history of these isles, is that the Irish in any state not safe. You guys are not safe.
I can't wait to get to it. But it's like basically someone invades Ireland for no reason at all. Everyone who writes about it says there's no reason to do it.
The great part about history of like Scotland in general is this could be about anybody. This could be this doesn't even have to be about the history of the past. This could be about anybody.
Someone invades Ireland for no reason. We don't know why.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get there. Have you had any real, Oswiu, have you had any real political evidence over Talakan? The conflict at Strathare, which saw the death of a Kenil and Gabrain prince, would never have happened. The fact that the battle did occur points to a sort of neutral relationship between nephew and uncle.
And if the death of Kenil and Gabrain prince would imply that the Picts did win that battle, or at least had the moral strategic victory of that battle.
Yes, they definitely... A total strategic victory for the Pictian enemy.
Yeah. Even if the Scots won that battle, it wouldn't be like an actual good win. It's like, I'm trying to get an example of a battle.
Victory.
Yeah. Maybe like Bunker Hill. Like that kind of... It's the same thing. The two men may have even been openly hostile. The political situation shifted again in 655 when Oswiu finally defeated Penda at a great battle near Leeds. The Mercian king perished, leaving the Bernician conqueror in an unassailable position. As master of Daria, and overking of all of Northumbria, the immediate aftermath of the battle, Mercia was under his sway. At the least, under Penda's sons were strong enough to regain power. Well, at least until his sons could, retake the power. Because remember, by this point, that is a huge sway of land in England. That's from the borders from the north down to about maybe Birmingham, past that.
Roughly, yeah, it's huge. It's huge anyway.
Yeah. But okay, Bede State, obviously Bede State something. I thought Bede was dead by now. How is he still stating things?
He's going to be the 8th century. Bede States.
Yeah, Bede States that Oswiu subjected the greater parts of the Pictish race to the dominion of the English, but this is untrue because it doesn't even say how he did it. In 655, yeah, beat the Ganda, and trademark that. In 655, Talarkan died, but we don't know why or how. But apparently this is after or before, we don't know, the subjugation of the Picts. If it was to make sense, it'd probably be afterwards in a battle, probably. But it is clear from Bede's words that it was some parts of Pictavia that fell under the English king's sway. But the greater part, by quotation, should mean probably the southern regions, because, as we've discussed in the earlier episodes, they were somewhat isolated from the rest of Pictavia, that's kind of how they were Christian first,
Yep.
due to the mountains. But this replace of the Pictish heartlands under English domination or dominion, which these lands were really important. They were just really isolated. I'd probably tend to argue the best farmland out of Pictavia, probably. He tended to make grand statements like this all the time because it's Bede.
Yeah, this is his thing.
It's his whole bit. And he was a Northumbrian glazer, like half of Twitter, who don't go outside.
As opposed to us, who definitely go outside.
I've done a 10k run, so I've went outside. I've done a 10k run, so that means I'm at least above every other historian.
It's just like a singular 10k run, just one, just.
Well, I've been on one 10k run. I've been about maybe 85k's in the past couple
like your whole life only covered that distance. That's it. That's all you've ever moved.
No, if you do a 10k, not competition wise, you are in Scotland. That's only 5% of people have done that.
There's no way only 5% of people really.
A continuous 10k. Not not running non-stop, but if you said, okay, I'm running 10 kilometers and it must be under maybe 2 hours, because the normal, I think that the longest rate in most 10Ks is an hour and a half or an hour 40. So I'm in 1 hour and 25 minutes because I had a really sore leg. And my 10K run route is up a mountain. So I've got some leeway, I'd say.
You're doing yours incline. Back to the narrative, I suppose. 50
metre incline.
Yeah. You've gone straight up. It's like the Stairs Master. The English overlordship probably did not reach as far as the River Tay. It's a pretty natural border, and as we've said, Bede was just spouting it out of his rear end. Although some portion of Pictavia most definitely fell under Oswiu's direct control, and as we've mentioned, probably the south somewhere, but because it was far more isolated from Greater Pictavia. These territorial gains, made presumably after a war, you would hope, against Talakan or one of his successors, was sufficiently secure to allow the establishment of a Bernician bishopric at Abercorn on the southern shore of the Firth of Forth. So this again it must have been after the war, and they did make relatively significant games. So Bede wasn't totally.
Yeah. We will get to it, but the Bernicians at this point were no longer under the Celtic Church. I don't believe. I can't remember. No. It was Oswald that married a Kentish princess, so I think he kind of pushed towards the Roman Church more than the Celtic one, which this Bernician bishopric at Abercorn would cause a bit of issues in the future. See, 1,000 years during the English Civil War, same problem. The Covenanters.
Abercorn was an English foundation with ecclesiastical authority over the Picts, and it was not founded until about 681, 11 years after Oswiu's death. But its location obviously suggests that the conquests were limited to Fife, thank God, and did not encompass large parts of Persia. Yep. If Andy Burnham would like to take it back, you're welcome to take it back. If this was the case,
only if we Cumbria.
That's right off. Then the River Erne probably marked the northern limit of Oswiu territories gain, but his martial reputation ensured that other parts of Pictavia acknowledged him as overlord, to try and avoid his wrath. In practical terms, probably meant that Talakan and his successors paid some sort of tribute towards.
Yeah.
My mind blank. But you get Oswiu and so and his probably his successors as well.
Yeah,
so.
And remember the Picts. I started to explain how they can act they're quite a big ego or pride about paying tribute. So this must have been widely hated. Not to say that other places like giving tribute, but I'd make the statement that probably Pictavia had quite a strong warrior culture from what we've seen. I would say the Scots too, but they lose every battle, so it's kind of hard to say they've got a warrior culture if they lose every battle. But yeah, this must have been despised by everyone, if it was, a real thing that happened, if it wasn't just more beat propaganda. Among the casualties of English expansion north of Lothian, well, the matey, I thought these guys were wiped out, but I don't remember after this. But yeah, the Miati, I swear they were like, I just matter. We're not experts,
You've been
but
around forever.
yeah. The Britons of Manu, which I hate it. It's still a town named Manu. It doesn't sound like it should be here. It's like
No.
there's a town in Wales
Do you know?
that's that sounds like it's from like fucking like Asia.
You know, Manu almost sort of sounds like some sort of like New World name that the Spanish gave something, and it was the local saying, "We have no idea what you're saying." I'm pretty sure I saw a thing, and this might be like a Wojak I'm remembering, but I'm pretty sure Yucatan just means like what they end up calling like the Yucatan Peninsula, the Spanish. I'm pretty sure that just means we just don't know what you're saying.
Dog, what the fuck are you saying? I'm trying to find Bangor. So the Welsh are Bangor. That sounds like it's being fucking Thailand or something like that.
I bet see if you say it in a Welsh accent, it sounds really Welsh.
Hang on.
Wow. Viewership halved from Wales.
I think they've Welsh if yours anyway. That's the thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't work if I don't say that.
And the agricultural aspect in Pictish podcast is gone. There's no more sheep anymore watching this podcast. It's fine. I'm 1% non-human as well, so it's it's fine. 1% Welsh. 1% Welsh, 99% human. Where was I? The Manu lands had bothered Pictish territory since the Roman times, but the early historic period brought them into conflict with the Scots of Dalriada, and after the collapse of the Godolphin, the Northumbrian English, they're there too now. This sandwiched them between three powerful nations. Two, if you don't recognise the Scots, and nestling in a volatile frontier region, the natives of Manu were unlikely to have survived long. Their great citadel at Coede, which may have also been used by Penda as a venue for the humiliation of Oswiu, would not have been left unconquered when Oswiu's warbands came north after 655. Like their Godolphin neighbours, the Britons of Stirlingshire were effectively wiped off the 7th century political map.
A man can dream. It was during this period of Northumbrian overlordship that an expedition to Pictavia was made by Cuthbert, a monk at Melrose in the Tweed Valley, who subsequently became Bishop of Lindisfarne and Northumbria's patron saint.
Get out of the dog. Leave Lindisfarne, dog.
Fun fact about Cuthbert, there's a team that play in the lower leagues in Scotland. So I think it's the West. I think it's one of the Lowland or the Highland League, or maybe the ones below that now. Called St Cuthbert's.
I'm sure maybe a skill as well.
Yeah, no, I think there is. So there's a fun. With a couple of companions, he set off on a winter voyage by sea, intending to sail north to a part of Pictabia inhabited by a people called Nidwari. This sounds like something from Avatar. During the journey, a fierce storm forced the travellers ashore in a desolate coastal region known as Aberdeen. No, they don't have a location. While the weather continued to deteriorate, they began to run out of provisions. I need to compose myself for this one. By way of a miracle and in answer to their prayers, they found dolphin meat and thus survived until they just found it, by the way, just perfectly cooked in a stone box, and thus survived until the storm relented after 3 desperate days. The sources for this incident are a Vita of Cuthbert, written by an anonymous monk at Lindisfarne. Please get out of there. Please get out of there. Together with a later Vita derived from it and written by, you guessed it, Bede.
Also, a bit more bit about Cuthbert. I believe he was also a saint, and there was...
Yep.
And in this castle of Bamber, they actually kept his comb, or was it his skull? It was they kept something of him as like a
Catholic funny.
Yeah, because Catholics had a really weird thing about like
They still do.
But no, this time, okay, we're on the edge here. At this time, of two Presbyterian from Catholicism.
No. I'm not even LARPing here. To be fair, And then most of them, a lot of the saints' bones are still like in Italy and stuff, and you can just see them.
Yeah, they're cool. Yeah, I would see, but I think Cuthbert's teeth, or like it's something, or it's his actual whole body. I can't remember what it was. I think it actually might be the comb of St. Cuthbert, which I think's like that's like selling like
That's such a bizarre thing. That's such a
that's like
strange thing.
it's like going into eBay and like, guys, I've got Taylor Swift's hair.
I've got the
Please
hairbrush
buy
of
it.
Taylor Swift.
I've got the toothbrush of P Diddy. Who wants to buy
Oh.
it? Neither author stated the purpose of Cuthbert's visit to the Dweary Picts, nor did they say who these people were or where they lived, because so that's quite hard to figure out if they just couldn't.
Yeah.
It's like they said, what's your name? This, I don't know, mate, just they're somewhere, right? It's probably the Welsh. They probably lived in the same region as, the conquered places of Fife. Tellerkin's successor as paramount ruler in Pictavia was Gartnet, son of Dunil, who, I swear there's four ways of this name, who reigned from the 657 to 663. This king's father may have also been Domnall Breck of Canal and Gebrain, as some historians have suggested. On the other hand, the name was very common among the Britons in the form of Dinfall, Dinfinwall,
Wow.
Dinfwall, and so could have been born by a royal prince of Ecgfith. It always goes to Ecgfith, and they're so relevant.
Which is the narrative of this podcast, because I will not, over my dead body, have some historian from Dublin telling me that Dunwell was the son of Donald Breck. Why? Because there's an agenda on this podcast. Wait, I just gave away the game. I gave away the game there. That was satire, please. That was satire, please. It was just a joke. I can't wait for this one to come up in my uni application. Alternatively, and more simply, the name of Gartnet's father had been a Pictish variant of Domnall or Dunwall. I can't remember these names. And therefore not of foreign, quotation marks, foreign.
Yeah.
This is quotation. Yep, we're quoting Tim Clark. If you get a problem with that, you get a problem with being called foreign. We are not saying it's foreign. Origin at all.
But the Scots but like the Scots kind of off. Well, not this. Not, I mean, maybe not this time. They're not foreign, but they were foreign at some point. But this might show to Tim Clark's. I mean, you can't say they're not foreign when they speak Gaelic. Guys, they just always spoke my language, and it's kind of like cool how to be like.
Listen, man. If you want to deal with a nationalist, that's cool.
Gaelic as his Scottish Gaelic is as common as native to this land as English. The real Scottish language is Scots because it was made by Scottish people in the land of Scotland. Someone's up playing God to the King.
Was eventually succeeded by his brother Drust.
Ishmisha Lugs.
Oh, Drust. Of course, it's another Drust.
Drust
7 year reign. And another. Coincided with the zenith of Oswiu's ascendancy as overlord of Britain. Drust's army fought the Battle of Lotho-Fern in 664 in Fortriu. Back to Fortriu. The battle site defies identification as most do in this period.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is.
But it presumably lay north of Persia and beyond the range of Oswiu's overlordship. The Irish annalists, thank God for them because we wouldn't know any of them without it, thought it worthy of note, even if they chose not to describe its cause or outcome. Its likeliest context was an internal scuffle between Drust and a dynastic rival, one of whom may have fought with Oswiu's moral, if not material, support.
Yeah, because morals win battles. I believe in you guys. One thing I want to get off my chest about the fucking Irish analysts and historians, not historians, but the people who wrote the records back then, they didn't actually give you any detail. They'd go, a battle was fought here, that was it. Who fought it? It's a lot of guessing. Yeah, a battle was fought in Pictavia. Yeah, but who fought? Who won? How many? Where was it? How many casualties? Not important. Just a battle was fought there, isn't
it? Guys, they fought Hyperborean Death War and I think Pictavia today. Oh, between who? I don't know.
We believe a Welsh king and an English king, probably. The year of the Battle of Lotho-Fern saw a huge event of significant religious repercussion. repercussions which were felt across northern Britain. This was the assembly or synod. I don't know the difference. A gathering of prominent churchmen. Imagine like what
Sure,
the
there's a
Romans
really
did.
good Catholic reply about being unsurprised about a Presbyterian not knowing the difference, but I'm not smart enough to get it.
I was gonna make a joke about the Romans and like having like their big I forgot the word for it. It's like in my it's in the Nicene Creed. I forgot the word they used for it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's going to annoy me now that I forgot the word for it. The synod's purpose. Sorry. These were convened by Oswiu, which even more reminds me of the Roman stuff. The king has convened a religious assembly because that's always how things get solved. Yeah, so the king goes, "Yeah, I'm the king. I know nothing about religion, but here's my 2 cents." And this was convened at Northumbrian Monastery of Whitby, which is why it's called the Synod of Whitby. The synod's purpose was to debate the differences between the Celtic and Roman clergy, which were now becoming acute and we're already having over. We've all went over these details in the previous episode.
This
And
actually, unironically, still goes on today. The sort of Irish Catholic and Italian versions of Catholicism are they have very different ideas of what it looked like.
And interesting enough, see nowadays we've actually been closest to uniting Protestantism and Catholicism in Scotland because the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church actually now accept both baptisms as legitimate. Although there is some priests that don't, which my family have told me about, that they've been banned from some Catholic places because they were baptised Protestants. But I'm sure it goes all the way around to in some places.
It's like that scene out of Inglourious Bastards. It's you're hiding Protestant baptisms under the floorboards, are you not? Matters came to a head in the 7th century, partly because both traditions were practised among the Northern English. Bernicia, for example, had been evangelised by priests of Celtic tradition, invited from Iona by King Oswald, Lindisfarne, and other important Bernician monasteries. Please get out of Lindisfarne. Such as Whitby, yeah, I forgot about that, were essentially satellites of Iona and bastions of Celtic Christianity. They were formed part of the familia of the Columban Church, whose influence stretched across much of northern Britain. By contrast, the southern English kingdoms had received Christian baptism via missionaries sent directly from Rome in 597 under the leadership of St. Augustine. After gaining a foothold in Kent, the mission had consolidated its presence when Augustine, why did I say it so differently twice there, became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. It was Canterbury's Roman tradition that Edwin of Deria enthusiastically embraced after his marriage to a Kentish princess and into which his children were baptised. In this, he differed from Oswiu of Northumbria, and this is important, whose childhood baptism in Iona had made him a devotee of the Celtic Church. However, when Oswiu married Edward's daughter in 643, the situation at the Northumbrian royal court became quite awkward around Easter. The king and queen often found themselves celebrating Christ's resurrection on different Sundays, a situation so absurd that Oswiu eventually took steps to prevent it.
And if you want some insight of like, so I've got 2 little things for you. So if you are kind of confused how this is gonna, like, why does it matter? Why you're in a history podcast if you don't understand why it matters. Secondly, imagine the Blood and Crips.
Yeah,
bishops,
really...
the bishops may preach love and acceptance until you're a Celtic bishop. Until your tonsure is slightly different from the other person's tonsure, then it's death, Hyperborean death ward.
Yeah, pretty much.
And also a little fun tidbit of the Scottish War of Independence. I can't remember who calls him it. No, it's at the Siege of Berwick. A Scottish soldier flashes his arse at King Edward I, Longshanks, and also they start calling the English invaders tailed dogs. This was either at Dunbar or Berwick Siege, and the tailed dogs was a slur made towards English people due to the fact that St. Augustine, when he came to Rome, came to England, he was laughed at or mocked by English pagans, so he gave them, but by the divine right of God, gave every Englishman tails, which people from Scotland actually believed. Well, they might believe, some didn't. That the English hid their tails in their in their trousers. So they called them tailed dogs because of something like hundreds of years ago, and I think it's kind of cool to mention. It was
Yeah.
quite interesting to mention to me. I mentioned it in some of my videos about the Black Douglas. At the same time of the synod, the churches of Pictavia lay securely within the orbit of Iona and were answerable to its abbot. This was Columba's legacy in the east and stemmed directly from the seeds of Christian conversion planted by his journeys during this reign of Brude, Melkon's son, in the late 6th century. The extent of Iona's influence among the Picts in the 7th century can be seen in the pattern of place names and church dedications commemorating its principal figures, such as the men who followed Columba in his abbacy. These abbots were usually Irishmen of noble stock, like their founder, and often hailed powerful families close related to Columba's own kin. The exception was Fergana, or Fergan, evidently a Briton who held the abbacy of Iona from 605 to 623. In Pictavia, his memory is preserved in the names of wells near Pitlochry and Timontoul. That's not a real place. Can't be a real place.
Yeah, when a few years ago, we used to, with my girlfriend and our friends, we used to sort of drive all around up in the northeast, and genuinely, there are some of the most ridiculous place names. None of them come to mind right now, but as you see, like the road signs going past, there are some genuinely peak road signs, and it's infuriating that I can't remember any of them right now.
And one of these examples is the Gaelic Toba Fergan, the Fergan's Well, which is, near Pitlochry and Timontoul. And this commemorates them in two ancient holy places where what deities were worshipped in pagan times, which is quite Christian pagan Celtic folklore of Scotland is always to do with water. I won't get into it because this episode will be long enough as it is.
Yep.
The well near Timontoul lies on a hill called Cock Fergan, and it's near an old church to Kirkmichael. Okay. Close proximity of the holy well and ancient church suggests the focus of the early cult devoted to this little known saint. It's not known if the abbot Abbot Fergana ever ventured east of Droom Alban, but if he did not, the place names could have been bestowed by his mercenaries who were working among the Picts, or literally anyone who knew who he was. A cross slab dating from the 8th century unearthed in the graveyard points to Rosy having been a centre of Pictish Christianity, and Rosy was, in Persia there's also a church called Rosy, which was dedicated to a priest called Common or Commonus, which is... Have I just fucked this up? Okay, never mind. Fergana's sister was the mother of Iona priest called Common or Commonus, to whom the Persian Church of Rosy was dedicated. A cross slab, I'm not getting into it, I've already said that, I'll just, listen, I'm not repeating myself because it's too long. I thought I'd cut this out. When the church was reconstructed in 1243 by the Bishop of St Andrews, a new dedication was made in the name of St Lawrence and St Commonus the Confessor, which is a cool nickname.
So I found them, and we're going to play a fun little game of, is this a real place in Scotland, or is it not? Meagle.
That's real.
Yep. Drunken Dub.
No, that's too much bait.
That's real.
Oh, are they all real?
Mimus.
Mimus. Mimus sounds a bit like Brittonic, so I'm saying it's real.
Yep. Memus. Mimus. It's real. It's like, it's actually
are any
a
of
place.
These not real?
I'm literally just on the map. Run to leave.
Run to leave. That's real.
There's a place just called The Bun. That's the most Brittonic thing I've ever read in my life. Where are you? I'm at The Bun. What one? The Bun. How could you not know? Oh yeah, Hob Seat. There's another one. Hob Seat. Yeah, there's some serious nonsense. Yeah. If you go on a map and you just start reading places in the northeast, it doesn't even need to be restricted there. There's Tillyprony. Okay, I'm not going into it.
Okay, guys.
Northumbrian Ecclesiastical Affairs.
Also, real quick, apology for the long episode. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. It might be doing 2 parts, but
yeah,
I might say I might say be born. Release the whole 3 hour, 2 hour. It'll be about 2 hours. If we lock in, it'll be an hour and a half.
Northumbrian ecclesial affairs. The great gathering of churchmen included representatives from both traditions, with King Oswiu himself there as well. The ensuing debate was a matter of enormous significance to everyone involved. Upon its outcome hung the question of whether Northumbria would stay loyal to Iona or transfer its ecclesial allegiance to the Archbishop of Canterbury. The proceedings were chaired by Abbess Hild of Whitby, herself a prominent figure of the Columban Church in Northumbria. You poor women, you do not know that you're about to get scrubbed from history because you are not allowed to be in the church and relevant as a woman. This is a joke. Please don't come for me, Pope Leo. You're actually pretty cool. Colman, the Irish Bishop of Lindisfarne, put forward the Celtic case, but was vehemently opposed by Wilfrid.
Greetings from St. Paul.
The English Bishop of Ripon. In the person of Wilfrid, Wilfrid becomes so iconic shortly in the next few sentences that this guy sticks out in my brain because this guy is like a guy of myth. He is so vehemently anti-Celtic.
It's to a degree, as a Celtic person myself, it's quite based.
Yep. In the person of Wilfrid, the cause of Roman Orthodoxy had such a lucid and powerful and forceful advocate against the Celtic side who really struggled to present their views. Bede giving a report on the debate.
It's the most Scottish thing ever.
Yep.
They just refuse to see what they believed.
Yeah. He gave a report more than half a century later, depicting it as a slanging match between Colman and Wilfrid. But this perhaps reflects his own deep antipathy towards, the Celtic tradition. The synod finally ended with Oswiu placing his support firmly behind Rome, a decision which effectively ended Iona's association with Aethelfrith's dynasty. Soon after, Colman and many of the Lindisfarne brethren left Northumbria and returned disconsolately to Iona.
It's kind of interesting that this was the breaking point.
Oh my god, we're not even halfway through the script.
Sorry. Trust me, it goes faster when we get out of the Christianity part because it's just so much. I've cut at least 3 pages of this, and it's still a lot. I was going to mention Ecgfith being a pagan and ruining the dynasty, but I think you care enough to get into the whole joke thing. We'll do jokes when we get to Dunedin, which is not too far away. That'll go fast. Yeah. Little of this seems at first to be relevant to the Picts because they're based, but the long-term effects were profound. The most immediate change was an altercation of the ecclesial map of Britain, which now showed Iona's influence restricted to Dalriada and Pictavia, with no more footholds anywhere else, apart from probably in Ireland as well. I'd probably argue the Clyde Britons, or maybe not. Well, this is Iona's church, never mind. The Clyde Britons still adhered to the Celtic Christianity, but their bishops had never been under Iona's sway and had more in common with their compatriots in Wales and Cornwall, while native kings still restricted English encroachments for about 2 more years. The outcome of the Synod of 664 was effectively sundered by Oswiu's people from the Celtic Church, which have brought them into the Christian fold. More significantly, it gave Roman Orthodoxy a more valuable northern base where its bishops could plan the next move against Iona.
At the same time, away in the east, Druce was still reigning over the Picts when Oswiu died in February 670. It's a stark comment on the perils of kingship in those days that Oswiu was the only 7th century monarch to die peacefully rather than in battle. His son Ecgfith, by then a young man in his mid-20s, not undoubtedly elated that his father had finally died, became not only king of Bernicia, but also laid claim to the wider hegemony established by Oswald and Oswiu. This included large tracts of territory west of the Pennines that had formerly lain under the rule of the native British kings. Northumbria had conquered these kings and extinguished their power, not by reducing them to tributary status, but by literally expelling them from their lands. When Ecgfith succeeded Oswiu, the area under his direct authority exceeded as far west as the Solway Firth and southwest to the River Ribble. The Britons who had inhabited these lands in, what is now Cumbria and Lancashire acknowledged Ecgfith's overlordship at his accession. Don't worry about Cumbria. The Strathclyde Britons get their own back. There is no record of a revolt by whatever remained of the native aristocracy, but even if there was, it's not like they would bother their arse to write about it.
Oswiu
The situation further north, however, was rather different. Oswiu's supremacy over his neighbours in Pictavia, Dalriada, and on the Clyde had been sustained by a proven military record and by his reputation as the greatest king of his time. But these were his personal traits that died with him, and as is so often with kingship, did not exactly automatically pass to his heir. Ecgfith therefore ascended the throne as a novice who had to prove himself as a man of strength and ruthless ambition. Failure would swiftly bring the loss of the empire created by his father, and might allow a Pict, a Scot, or a Briton to claim overlordship in the north.
Shut up.
It was it was not only a matter of time before the new king's mettle was put to the test. I said it was only a matter, I meant to say it was only a matter. Within a year or two of Oswiu's death, the conquered portion of Pictavia, under direct English rule, basically immediately rose up in rebellion, and probably at the instigation of Drust, the Pictish overking.
Ecgfith had no intention of meekly relinquishing his father's Pictish gains, because if he did, he'd probably be killed. He responded with a military strike against the rebels. The ensuing campaign was reported by Stephen of Ripon, an English monk who wrote a Vita of Bishop Wilfrid in the early years of the 8th century. Stephen called the enemy bestial Pictish populations whose unnamed leader gathered innumerable nations from every nook and corner in the north. So this implies there was Britain, Scots, anyone really who wanted to chip away at Northumbrian hold in the north. This leader, possibly identified as King Drust, hoped to free the conquered Pictish districts from the English rule, or as Stephen puts it, to liberate them from the yoke of servitude. Hastening north, Ecgfith led an army of mounted warriors in a rapid advance which soon brought him face to face with the rebels. The clash of the arms resulted in a significant English victory. According to Stephen, the English killed an immense amount of people, filling 2 rivers with corpses of the slain. So that, marvellous to relate, the slayers, passing over the rivers by dry foot, pursued the slough of a crowd of fugitives. The 2 rivers were probably the Erne and Tay, both of which follow a parallel eastward course before emptying at sea into the Perth, placed not too far off the Pictish monastery of Abernethy. That's not how you say it. The victory confirmed Ecgfith's hold on his father's gains and ensured that the Southern Picts elites continued to make their tribute payments to Northumbria. And I don't know why the Picts would fight on a river. I don't know why this battle doesn't make sense to me. They fought in 2 rivers against mounted warriors and the Picts lost. I don't know. You there?
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself whilst I was cleaning my nose. I meant to say because horsemen go brr, that's why. Also, I think you did get Abernethy right. I'm pretty sure that is pronounced Abernethy. Yeah. More than one historian has suggested that Drust might not have been Ecgfith's foe, but this is how do we say this? Pictish cope, probably, but merely a vassal or a puppet installed in Pictland by Oswiu, who faced Ecgfith. A similar status might have been envisaged for Talarcan, but there's no sources that suggest this. Either of these kings owed their power to an English overlord. Around the time of Ecgfrith's history, or not long afterwards, Drust, why did I pronounce that as if I've never said it before? Drust was expelled from his kingdom by an unidentified opponent for reasons that are unknown, but pretty known if you can infer from the last paragraph, the last section. The Irish Annals noted that the event at 672 in the early years of Ecgfrith's reign. Why did I read it like that? The Irish Annals noted that this event happened in the early years of the 672 and the early years of Ecgfrith's reign. That flows better. Further speculation by historians includes a theory that Drust was outed by his internal rivals who deemed him unworthy, after such a huge catastrophic loss to Ecgfith. Those who regarded Drust as a Northumbrian vassal placed his expulsion before the battle and suggest that Ecgfith's expedition was launched in revenge for the deed. The precise circumstances will never be known, because God forbid these people write anything with any details. Among the few certainties is that Drust was eventually succeeded by Brude, son of Beli, a man soon to become the most famous Pictish king of the 7th century. If there is anybody who's earned the title Hammer of the Scots.
Yeah, it's this guy. Well, we're almost there, guys, don't worry. We're almost there. It might say 14 more pages. Don't worry. They go fast. The final quarter of the 7th century opened with an unified Northumbria in a dominant position as the most powerful kingdom in Britain. For how long longer? In the person of Ecgfith, Oswiu's son, it possessed an energetic warlord determined to build on the conquests of his predecessor. Much of Ecgfrith's authority was inherited from his father Oswiu, who, after defeating Penda, had subjugated not only the Mercians in the south, but also the Picts and Britons in the north. This was a huge empire. Like, this was like rivaling the Great Britain to a degree.
This was...
The Scots too were also in some kind of tributary relationship with Oswiu. The wide area of authority we don't really know, but we do know that they remained intact after Ecgfith succeeded to the kingship, and this is quite uncommon for this time.
Yeah.
Especially with the Picts, like how the way the overlordship works.
Yeah. Brude, Beli's son. We're not doing this again with the names. I'm just saying it and I'm going. Was one of the kings who paid tribute to Ecgfith.
We'd save 10 minutes probably in this podcast.
Yeah.
Just kept going.
This burden involved, regular offense of livestock, agriculture produce, and other material resources, together with an obligation to provide hospitality to the foreign overlordships tribute collectors. This was obviously an unequal relationship, and it could be demeaning for the lesser party, but it didn't have to be, and it had to be endured until an opportunity arose to change it. Such opportunities usually came when something happened to disrupt the status quo by shaking an overlordship's grip on its hegemony. For Brude and other northern kings, the key moment arrived in 679, when in the English Midlands, when Ecgfith fought a great battle with the Mercians near the River Trent. The result was, not particularly decisive, in the sort of overall strategic sense of why am I bumbling? Right? For it left both sides capable and willing to resume hostilities, but Ecgfith ultimately emerged as a loser after the church intervened to diffuse the growing tension, which, if you're meant to be the super conqueror overlordship guy, having your ambitions curbed is not good. His toe in the battle was foe. Why did he toe? Well, because it says toe. Why did I read that though? His foe in the battle was Ecgfith, a younger son of Penda, whose main objective was to wrest back the Mercian province of Lindsey from Northumbrian control. This objective was duly achieved via the terms of a peace accord negotiated by the Archbishop Theodore of Canterbury. The treaty left Ecgfrith's hegemony diminished. Brackets, foreshadowing. His domain reduced and his political ambitions in the south effectively curtailed. His grip on the outer fringe of his domain was shown to be breakable, which is important for the Picts and so on. In the borderlands around the Fourth Clyde Isthmus, the vassal kings in the Celtic north began to stir against them.
It's like a movie. It was inevitable that the main challenge would come from the Picts, whose recent revolt Ecgfith had crossed in 672. Having recovered from this defeat, they again posed a dangerous and volatile threat to his authority. Under the strong leadership of Brude, Beli's son, they were once again a formidable people. By 679, their elites were wanting to fight, regain the lost territories, and assert their independence. Someone play Braveheart. Throwing off the burden of paying tribute to Northumbria, they soon became a priority for Brude, leading him to seek a decisive showdown with Ecgfith.
The growing antagonism between the two kings incorporated an ecclesiastical dimension, whose architect was Theodore of Canterbury. At the beginning of the 680s, the Archbishop turned his attention to redrawing the diocesan map of England, a process that had already seen the removal of Wilfrid as Bishop of Northumbria in 678. Wilfrid's huge diocese had been divided by Theodore into separate bishoprics of Bernicia, with its seat on Lindisfarne and Derry, with its episcopal headquarters at York. I promise, guys, this gets good soon. In 681, the Archbishop broke the
They're here already, they're here for the long run.
Bernician See into three parts by establishing the additional bishopric at Abercorn and Hexham. Abercorn lay on the southern shore of the Firth of Forth, but the primary responsibility of its first bishop, a Northumbrian called Trumwine, was not the spiritual care of English settlers in Lothian. Instead, Trumwine's designated flock were the conquered Picts of Fife, still languishing under Ecgfrith's direct rule. These communities, must have watched the arrival of the new bishop with suspicion, regarding him as a symbol of English domination. On a political level, the church at Abercorn not only gave Ecgfrith subjection of the Picts, and is this my first day on earth? It didn't only give Ecgfith subjection on the Picts an aura of permanence, my god, but also implied that it was sanctioned by God.
Because God really cares about the Picts and the English of
Yep,
political.
this is what Creator of the Universe is interested in.
Furthermore, the close proximity of the bishop of the Roman tradition represented a thinly veiled challenge by Theodore of Canterbury to the Celtic churches north of the Tay, whose clergy still answered to Iona. The Columban priests who served the spiritual needs of Brude and his people undoubtedly felt threatened by the arrival of Trimwine on their doorstep. It was at this time Brude began to flex his military muscles and this began with the siege of Dunatar in 681, the same year as the establishment of Abercorn. Dunatar was a coastal promontory fort near the modern town of Stonehaven, a few miles south of Aberdeen. The ruined medieval castle now occupied the site succeeded an earlier stronghold known as Dunforthia in the late 7th century. This was probably the residence of a wavering local lord who needed to be reminded where his morals lie and obligations lie, or maybe just being another dynastic rival who claimed the kingship of Pictavia.
I've actually been to Dunnottar Castle, and it is cited in what I can only describe as a nightmare to try and... Even walking there is a nightmare to try and get there. So how on God's green earth you would take that place?
With an army.
With an army is a nightmare. There's such a restricted area around it. Honestly, whoever originally built it, hats off to them. Brude evidently won the encounter, for in the following year he launched a destructive campaign against Orkney for some reason. Like his namesake of 100 years earlier, who, in the presence of St. Columba, had issued commands to an Orcadian sub-king. Brude regarded these isles as part of his hegemony. He demanded homage from the Orcadians and imposed his will upon them by force of arms. A year later, he besieged another outpost of rebels, or rivals, the target of his wrath being the hill fort of Dundun. The strategic position of this place in the upper valley of the River Erne, on a major route from Argyll, made its subjugation essential. It was an imposing fortress whose 7th century residents were people of wealth and power. Bringing Dundun to heel strengthened not only Brude's position within his realm, it also increased the flow of tribute and resources to his treasury. Other strongholds no doubt suffered a similar fate during this period of aggression, which saw Brude undertaking a serious military strikes just to, really consolidate and stamp his authority on the peripheral of Pictavia.
I feel like I've set you up with the length of these paragraphs, but it gets bad for me soon, don't worry. Ecgfith, meanwhile, were still nursing a wounded pride after the thwarting of his southern ambitions. He was not the kind of king to suffer such great grievances meekly, aka he was spoiled and didn't like losing his nice new toys, and was soon itching for another contest with Mercia. Please don't. In 684, within 5 years of the Battle of Trent, he once again sent soldiers to war. This time, he delegated this important war to a henchman called Bercht, Berht, a high-ranking member of the Bernesian aristocracy. It was not, however, to Mercian territory in the English Midlands that this aggression was directed, but to the Midlands of Ireland. The motive behind this campaign is, as you can tell, unclear. We do have a lot of theories, but it's just...
One theory suggests that a spirit had came down from the sky and told the English, for the next 1400 years, you have got to be involved in this island. For love nor money, you have got to try and conquer this place. Another theory, probably wrongly, suggests that the Ecgfith sought to deter Irish support for his half-brother Aldfrith, a son of Oswiu, by a princess of the Unial dynasty of High Kings. Under Irish law, the illegitimate child of this liaison had to be fostered among the maternal kin, which in this case left a potential claimant on the Northumbrian kingship in the care of the ambitious Unial. However, a snippet of information provided by Bede suggests that Ecgfith and his siblings did not regard their half-brother as a potential rival at all. Bede briefly reported a conversation between St. Cuthbert and Aelfled.
Aelfled, sorry.
Wow, picture that. keep an eye out for her. Ecgfith's sister in the year of the raid on Ireland. In no uncertain terms, Ethelfred disregarded Alfred as a viable contender for the Northumbrian throne and seemed to be barely aware of his existence. Assuming that this view was also shared by Ecgfith, the raid is unlikely to have been spurred by concern about his half-brother.
Also, his name is Alfred, but it implies it's not Ethelfred. So, like, not
Yeah.
Ethelfrith. So it's not even like his name even suggests he's not even a rival.
No. The poor guy, he's just getting dogged on. Another possible motive for the attack is found in a late and pretty controversial source, the Annals of Clon MacNoise. There's no way it's MacNoise. Which refers to an alliance between the Irish and the Britons. Never. If such an alliance ever existed in the 680s, and if the Britons in question were in revolt against Ecgfith, then a punitive raid upon their friends in Ireland could maybe have made some strategic sense, but the logistics of a naval invasion just to raid punitively doesn't make much sense to me. But a further hypothesis proposes a religious dimension, which, if you know anything about Anglo-Irish relations, this definitely makes sense. Suggests that with papal blessing, Ecgfith pursued the interests of the Roman Church by terrorising a country where Celtic Greece still held spiritual sway.
So, guys, the Pope went, yeah, dog, just attack the Irish. That's a theory. There's probably a lot of things to it. Unfortunately, the sources do not offer any theories of their own, and thus it's hard to understand why he chose to attack Ireland. But it is no theory that everyone around him seen this as a huge mistake. The influential English churchman Ecgfith warned us not to do it, pointing out the Irish had done no harm to Northumbria. But the warning was ignored, and the venture ultimately backfired and did enormous damage to Ecgfith's reputation at home and abroad, which is kind of weird because this is England we're talking about. Especially after the callous deeds of the soldiers became widely known. Landing in Ireland, the Northumbrian army rampaged across the plain of Brega, an area whose landscape include ancient royal sites of Tara and other hallowed places.
The English warriors attacked churches and monasteries with a ferocity that shocked observers on both sides of the Irish Sea. This could literally be from any point in the sort of history of England and Ireland.
This could be last week.
This could be last week, 400 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. This could be literally any time. Which is hilarious that it started this early. Not that we think that England ravaging Ireland is funny, but the fact it goes on for this long. Anyway, after the slaughter and destruction, Robert the Bruce tried to take over it is fine. But
the Scots invading Ireland's quite funny because it's like it kind of ruins a bunch of SNP propaganda. Let's go forward, boys.
After the slaughter and destruction, the invaders returned to their ships laden not only with loot but also with many captives who were taken back to Northumbria as hostages. Even Bede, who was a young Bernician boy of 11 or 12 at the time, wrote later of the wickedness of the campaign and counting it among Ecgfith's worst sins.
Bede's 11 at this moment in time. We've still got about 100 years of Bede propaganda. On the 26th of March, also, an 11-year-old writing about stuff, who cares? 11-year-old's opinion. On the 26th of March of the following year, on Easter Sunday, depending on who you ask, Ecgfith and his chief clergy, assembled at York to witness the consecration of Cuthbert as a bishop of Lindisfarne. The attendees were distinguished company headed by Theodore, Archbishop of Canterbury, the leader of English Church. 6 other bishops were also present, some of these being Trumwine of Abercorn, whom Theodore had just appointed as bishop to the conquered parts of Batavia. Cuthbert himself had formerly travelled in Pictish lands as a missionary in areas under direct Northumbrian control. Although he had ventured further into territory still ruled by Pictish kings, he had a good grasp of the political situation in the north, and one of these first acts after being appointed as bishop was to urge Ecgfith to not seek a showdown with Brude. Cuthbert knew that the belligerent son of Oswiu was planning a new northern campaign, and this was bad. the clergy had a bad feeling about this. His advice, like Ecgfith in the previous year, was brushed aside. 4 weeks later, on Sunday 24th of April, Ecgfith visited the monastery of Yarrow beside River Tyne to witness the dedication of its church to St. Paul. The stone bearing the date and the king's name can be seen in the wall today. Soon afterwards, perhaps within a few days of ceremony, the Northumbrian army marched to war against the Picts. Ecgfith's likeliest route was via the old Roman route known as Derry Street, the Derrier Road, which ran from the eastern side of the kingdom from the Tyne to the River Forth. The River Forth. I'll be right back. It's on at my door. Just you continue, and I'll get back.
My God, this is some recording. That ran out of water. I take it we are now on to yes. Oh dear. Okay, there's some. Okay. Although lacking maintenance for almost 300 years, this ancient highway was still functional. SMP, take notes. It followed a direct course through Lothian to reach the long-discussed disused Roman fort at Cramen. From there, the Northumbria army would have continued northward to cross the River Forth at the feet of what is Stirling Castle now. To the east lay Fife, which probably had lain under direct English rule since the time of Oswiu. To the north lay the Rivers Erne and Tay, both of which Northumbrian troops crossed via fords in the shadow of an ancient Pictish fortress on Moncrieff Hill. The invaders now advanced into the heart of southern Pictavia, ravaging and plundering rich agricultural lands. In military terms, such ravaging had a twofold purpose. It enabled the confiscation of food supplies for the army, while ensuring that the same resources were unavailable to Brude.
Yeah, I'm just... people should get in the house. We've been recording that long that I've had like 4 people come to the door. Swampy terrain on the east on the east forced Ecgfith to follow a course of the Tay upstream to its junctions with the River Isla. I don't believe these rivers exist. I've never seen them. From here, he turned northeast along the Great Vale Strathmore.
Hold on. Interjection. Are you Scottish and you've just read that Isla is Isla? I think you just had your citizenship revoked.
How can I have my citizenship revoked of Scotland when that's not a country anymore?
Do you even have citizenship here into like subjectship?
We're not subjects. We're equal partners of His Britannic Majesty. Of whom is His Britannic Majesty originated from? I put that to you. A laugh, pal. Ireland. And the Dean Water, travelling through a landscape that has now changed considerably since the 7th century. We've been covered like 10 years. The loch now lying east of Forfar are merely remnants of a larger stretch of water that had been encountered by the Northumbrian soldiers. Despite post-medieval efforts to drain Rescoby Loch and Restonneath Loch, the former extent of these features is still discernible on old maps and place names and in current patterns of vegetation. In 1685, this part of Strathmore was a treacherous landscape of bogs, lakes and pools, perfect for the Picts. That would have been a difficult place to traverse for a large body of warriors marching in unfamiliar territory, like Agricola before him and the Anglo-Norman warlords after him. We've jumped quite a long time. As Ecgfith led his troops over firmer terrain on the northern side of the Dean Water. Small bands of enemy warriors were seen from time and time again, but they faded into the landscape as soon as the English tried to pursue them. I believe, I've got a theory, the Scottish were just nomadic cavalry without being nomadic. They ran away until...
The Mongols learned everything they knew off Picts.
And the invading army was marching unwittingly into a trap because You don't chase people who are continuously retreating into deeper, boggier land, right? It's something you don't do. It's
Yep.
like Sun Tzu wrote this, probably.
Yep. Brude allegedly got his hands on the art of war and somehow had it translated into whatever he spoke from. I don't even know what it would be like. Would it be some form of Chinese? I know it wouldn't be modern Mandarin, but
No, it's in English. My book's in English, so.
um, on Saturday, the 20th of May, at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
How
the
do we
forces of Ecgfith.
how do we know the time? That we don't even know if people existed at this time, but we know the time.
Anyway, because it says so on my watch, the forces of Ecgfith and Brude clashed in a great battle. Bede reported the event, but he doesn't identify the precise location, but he apparently decided to identify that it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Although he wrote that the fighting took place in narrow passes in the midst of inaccessible mountains, the
You know,
Irish analysts,
a place where you fight a battle against natives.
yes, the Irish analysts finally deciding to write some form of detail, called the battle Dun Nectan, Nectan's Fort, a name of Gaelic rather than of Pictish origin. The Picts name for the place is unknown, but later Welsh texts called it
Of course it
Llangarin,
is.
Crane Lake, a name almost certainly borrowed from the North Britain. Since the Picts spoke some form of Brythonic language, they too probably called the battle Llangarin or something very similar. In the 12th century, a Northumbrian monk, which I find horrifically ironic, Simon of Durham, or Simeon, I feel like it'll be Simon, but Simeon,
Yeah.
gave the English name of the site as Nectansmere, Nectansmire, and this was undoubtedly the name used by his countrymen 5 centuries earlier. The battle, as most of them would have been, was a clash of foot soldiers with limited fighting on horseback. Cavalry warfare was not, in the sense that we understand it, common during this period. Despite stylised depictions of armed riders and heroic poetry and sculptured, horses were valued as high status possessions, but their main military was used as a means of transporting warriors to a battlefield. Where, and this is kind of still debated, but according to Nick Aitchinson, he says that on the stones that depict Dunedin, that at the start of it, I say this like you wouldn't just be able to look at it and see.
Yeah. It's a literal
But
logo of the podcast.
yeah, these battles would always start generally with a cavalry clash, and this is where Nick Aitchinson also kind of points out that this kind of is hard to decipher. The cavalry would clash, but then here's what's unclear: is would they then, after this clash, go
Dismount.
back and dismount and command their troops, or would separate lords command mounted men? Because there are nobles depicted among men.
It kind of
Who
reminds me
are
of this kind of tradition of in Britain where before battle, two soldiers would be picked to deal it out. And the
Yep.
famous one I can think of was, I can't remember the battle name, but it was when was it Halidon Hill? Where
Yeah, I
the
think so.
two, it was a Scottish knight. It was a bad omen if like if you lost a 1-1 duel. The Scottish knight was winning the fight, then lost somehow, and then obviously the English won that battle. It kind of reminds me of that, how they'd have a little duel with the horsemen, maybe to get some early like licks in against the nobility.
Yeah.
But also
Um.
in this battle, remember it's in mountains, so it could be really hard to use cavalry charges.
Would
So
be
maybe they just did fighting cavalries in this battle.
yeah. But what we do know, so we do know something about the way the Picts fought, and that it was kind of like a proto Shiltron. So the Picts would have lined up for this with, I think, spearmen in the front, then a line of spearmen behind them, kind of like a Shiltron, kind of looks like your hedgehog, and then in the depictions there are swordsmen behind them. So it was clearly some sort of complex formation. Okay, the
Yeah.
Picts knew what they were doing.
The Picts loved killing each other, so they
Which,
knew what they were doing.
yeah, they knew what they were doing. You know, they could sort of
Again, good press.
effectively use these complex formations. So, Brood clearly they must have seen some system in place for the Picts that was not just okay. You are my yeomanry. You will fight for me. But anyway, to get sort of back on track with the narrative, some leaders may have remained in the saddle to perform certain rituals of warfare, such as the cavalry clash I discussed before. However, combat between the two armies was essentially a melee of infantry blocks. Swords, spears, and axes and shields were the tools of trade, and there was virtually no archery, but we also know that the Picts did use crossbows at this time.
No, but
There
was that
is,
not for
there is,
hunting? The
yeah,
crossbows?
exactly. That's what I mean.
But
It's crazy.
I think I'd also put in archery is also not a nobility kind of thing, but it's also like you need to be like some sort of like you need to be like you have to learn that for a young age, and
Yeah,
hunting as a well I don't know these things, but you can't really just go hunting in lands because it was owned by the lords, all the animals as poaching. So to know how to shoot a bow and arrow, you'd mostly need to be of some minor
but
nobility or some
this is the
degree.
confusing part. Is they must
Yeah,
have had some form of training to be able to carry out these sort of complex formations, like with the
yeah,
spears and stuff. So, but they have access to these things. We know they had access to bows and arrows and and, uh,
crossbows.
and crossbows, but they just didn't use them. But they did use javelins.
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably the
they
easiest
used
thing they could
those.
do. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, But an indication of the sheer brutality of this type of fighting comes from graves unearthed at medieval battle sites which show some genuinely horrific injuries inflicted by bladed weapons. Such evidence shows the grim reality behind the heroic images of war presented on carved monuments or in battle poems such as the Godolphin. The encounter at Nectansmere in 685 would have been a scene of horrific savagery. Its outcome was a great victory for the Picts. For Ecgfith and nearly his entire army were slaughtered. His loyal bodyguard of chosen warriors, which sort of every noble had, fought to the last man until all were slain around them.
from talking about this battle, it's quite maybe clear to look at the way it probably happened. It's inaccessible mountains. Cavalry probably couldn't move as well, so they fought on feet. So that means they couldn't really retreat if they got encircled.
Yeah.
And from what it gathers to me, they must have got some sort of encirclement because it is like military doctrine in these kind of times to leave a gap for men to retreat. Because if men can retreat, they won't fight to the death. But if they can't get out, they will fight to the death and cause more casualties.
Weird, good night. You're still in charge of the dog.
I know. Give me a
Right,
second,
to pick up.
fucking Adolf.
Yeah, no, I'll pick up. To pick up where we had left off there.
Historians
Eh,
generally agree that the Dunecton of the Irish Annals was the ancient fortification of Dunecton Hill near Forfar. A little below the summit, the broken remnants of a wall were visible in the 18th century, but much of the stonework was subsequently removed to be reused by local people because, of course, it was. Quarrying on the site eventually destroyed most of what remained. The hill overlooks on its southern east side a boggy field called Dunecton Moss. In the midst of a small pond as that now remains of a substantial area of water. This was drained in the 18th century, but its formal extent can be reconstructed by references to old maps which show a small loch occupying what is now the moss. Until recently, a consensus of opinions believed that the loch was Simeon's Nectansmere in the Welsh Llangaren, with the great battle taking place in the shadow of Dunecton.
In more recent years, historians have questioned the traditional identification of the Neck and Moss at the site as the site of Battle of Nectansmere. These critics argued basically that its location would have required Ecgfith to make it a huge and unlikely tactical error for someone of his proficiency in his field. An alternative theory places the battle between Duneckan Hill and the larger pre-modern Rhysneth Loch, which another suggests Dunacton near Aviemore, though this is considered less likely. Since Bede was not an eyewitness, his description may have been more symbolic than geographically accurate. The most plausible battlefield is therefore thought to have been the low ground between Duneckan Hill and Rhysneth Loch, matching both the lake and hill traditions found in medieval sources.
On the day of battle, St Cuthbert was visiting Carlisle, where Queen Lormenburg, that's such a name, Ecgfrith's second wife, sat waiting anxiously at a nunnery which her sisters governed as an abbess. During the afternoon, the royal official who administered the city gave Cuthbert a guided tour of the local Roman antiquities, perhaps as a diversion from the tense atmosphere prevailing among the Queen's entourage because their husband was fighting in a battle against the Picts who wouldn't be terrified. Now that treats as conjecture because it's really specific for this kind of time, which is treated like an assault. At 3 o'clock, when Cuthbert began to show a finely carved fountain, he suddenly began visibly agitated and lifted his eyes to the sky. Oh, 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 he cried, I believe the war is ended and the verdict has been given against our warriors. Despite being asked to explain himself, He just wouldn't say anymore. And rushed immediately to Levenberg, advising her to expect the worst. It's like, within a few
That's
days,
incredible. The first ever
by
doomer. First recording of dooming.
the first ever something ever happens, guy. One of the few survivors of Ecgfith army reached Carlisle to bring the news of the Pictish victory, which is quite noble of them because most people who escaped the battle would just desert and never come back.
Yeah.
And to inform the Queen that her husband was dead. So that would imply he was near. Well, it would either imply that he was lucky enough to escape and seen everyone else get slaughtered, or he was maybe one of the bodyguards who'd seen him get killed. Because once the bodyguard sees the king die, why are you fighting anymore?
Yeah. Contemporary and later Northumbrian writers regarded the battle as wretched and mournful and as a most woeful disaster. To Bede, it marked a turning point in the fortunes of Northumbria. From this time, he wrote despondently, the first ever doomer. The second ever doomer, sorry. The hopes and strength of the English kingdom began to ebb and fall away. He added that the Picts recovered their own land, which the English had formerly held, while the Scots of Dalriada, as well as some part of the British nation. What is Bede's beef with the outlaw?
Yeah. So it's basically dooming and glooming that the Scots took back their own
Yeah.
land, the Picts took back their own land, and the Britons as well took some parts of their own land back. And maybe the Scots just
Yes.
overthrew the tribute estate.
Yeah.
Dooming and glooming about that.
And all of these people threw off the Northumbrian yoke and, regained their independence. Broadly, and then, in the broader political scene, this meant that the kings of Pictavia, Dalriada, and Outclut shook off the burden of paying tribute to an English overlord.
And for the Picts, obviously regaining the southern lands that were
Yeah.
held for quite a while by this point. The immediate aftermath had grim repercussions for the English settlers, not for the Fifth or Fourth, because of course it would. It's the Picts, Northumbrian settlers who had made their homes in Fife or other districts seized by Oswiu from the Picts now found their situation unattainable. The Picts stormed across the Tay to reclaim the conquered lands. Bede wrote that the many of the English in this region were either slain by the sword or enslaved or escaped by the flight from Pictish territory. The most high-profile refugee was Trumwine, the Bishop of Abercorn, who fled with his monks to seek sanctuary in the monastery at Whitby. There he remained to the end of his days, serving God in the piety and austerity, and never returning to Pictland ever again.
Ecgfrith's body was buried at Iona, and this decision was made by Brude. Ecgfrith's widow and other members of the Mercian royal family might have otherwise chosen a site in Northumbria to be his final resting place, but the decision was evidently, not theirs to make. Ethelfred, Ecgfrith's sister, jointly governed the monastery at Whitby with her mother, and this was where the renowned Father Oswiu lay buried. It's likely that Ecgfrith too would have been entombed at Whitby if his kin had been given any say in the matter. Instead, he was conveyed to Iona to rest alongside the kings and saints of the Celtic North. From Bude's point of view, this was more than a gesture of goodwill than malice. It's kind of like how some Mormons baptise dead people who weren't Mormon to get them into Mormon heaven.
That's just real, by the way. That's real, by the way. That's real.
Demonstrated his own elevated status as the new overlord of Northern Britain, while presenting him as a generous and forgiving Christian ruler.
So generous and forgiving that he slaughtered the whole army. For Brude, the most immediate consequence of victory was that he was no longer obliged to send, money to Northumbria. Boo! The surplus of money. With the surpluses of the payments no longer, building up, and with the agricultural produce from the southern Pictish districts, he had a lot of things to just throw away. He devoted these resources to the ongoing task of strengthening his authority, and beyond the economic gains, it is difficult to assess the political significance of the Battle of Donington, apart from the obvious, as we've already mentioned.
But yeah.
It did not, as some sources believe, prevent an immediate English conquest of the entire Pictish nation. Most likely, it would have been just like a big raid party or some sort of like superiority flex. But if it was one of these things, it was the benefits did not outweigh the possible consequences. You either die and lose all the lands, or you flex your muscles for a couple more years. Nor did it extinguish Northumbria's territorial claims around the Fourth. Bede's doom-laden rhetoric made the countrymen look like a battled force after what he called the woeful disaster of 685, but this just wasn't the case. It is true that Bernisi would have produced no great warrior kings in the following generation. This was due to Ecgfrith's childness and like just not having kids, which some stories would probably indicate that he was probably gay or didn't,
Yeah.
or he was infertile. We don't. There's a lot of kings that just don't have kids, and
Yeah.
like one's Basil, and just like maybe he just didn't want to like bring his kid. Like,
Yeah.
because Basil went through the horrific like child puppet vassal, but they continued to play an important role in Pictish affairs for many years to come.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's probably some sources from the time that we don't have that was like, yeah, Ecgfith had this best friend, and they were never away from one another. You know,
It's great. Like, yeah, this guy's best friend travelled all around Europe and Mediterranean.
Okay, to be fair, Frederick the Great is like most definitely like the most like confirmed one I think off the top of my head, because he has some heinously graphic letters that he sent that we still have, and I will not be relating those on the podcast.
Don't bathe, I'll be there in 3 days.
A memorial in the form of a poem, which I will be subject to reading, was created to celebrate the outcome of the Battle of Dunechan. Only a portion survives, as 6 lines of verse preserved in an old Irish manuscript. This fragment is all that remains that what may have once been a long, heroic poem, and that is most likely the case, in praise of Brude's victory. The lines are attributed to an Irish priest called Riagul, that's definitely not how you say that, who lived among the Picts at the time of the battle.
Is that Ryan?
No, actually that's a shout. That's definitely a shout. But the original composer is more likely to have been a Pictish bard whose name is now forgotten. Bards were important members of a king's entourage, basically medieval hype men. The following verse, although credited to Ryan, was probably the work of a bard at the Royal Court of Pictavia. This day Brude fights a great battle for the heritage of his grandfather. Unless the Son of God wishes otherwise, he will perish in it. This day, Oswiu's son has been killed in battle against blue swords. Although he did penance it was penance too late. This day, Oswiu's son has been killed, who had the black draughts. Christ has heard our prayers. They should that they should save Brude the Brave.
Sorry, I was looking up to make sure, see what battle was when we seen the Sultan in the sky. That was 852, and I thought this may be in it because I knew it was against the Northumbrians. But it was against, I think it was the Scots that seen it. Sorry. The mention of blue swords may be stylized reference to oxidation of from reheated iron blades to make them stronger, unless it just refers to a simple bluish hue of steel. The black draughts associated with Ecgfith are deep gaping wounds from which he died in the battle, which did he? I'm getting off topic, but they did wear armor, but we don't know how good that armor actually was. If the king got deep gaping wounds from most likely just.
I don't remember reading much on armor, but armor was not the plate armor anyway.
I mean, like I think at most like they had obviously leather armor.
Probably forms of chainmail or mail.
Yeah, chainmail. It wasn't off, so it would be colder. So maybe like some more kind of leathery, kind of like heat insulation armor would be more suitable. But that feels kind of fantasy to suggest such a thing.
probably for kings, they had some form of mail.
Yeah, the average guy. Good luck, mate. Just find something to put on.
Yeah.
More intriguing is the claim that Brude fought for the heritage of his grandfather, which implies that he was a Pictish king ancestry, and this gave him an additional motive or objective. Unfortunately, the poem does not say which grandfather, because why would they? Brude's paternal grandfather, his father's father, was Nathan, king of Clyde Britons, but the maternal grandfather is unknown. No source names Brude's mother, but given that she's gave birth to a Pictish king, she's most likely a Pictish princess or a Pictish lady of royal blood to some degree.
A different theory, however, sees Brude's mother, like Ecgfrith's, as a daughter of Edwin of Deira, for some reason. This idea presents the unlikely scenario of Brude, whose father was certainly Beli, king of the Clyde Britons, being the child of 2 non-Pictish parents, Even setting aside, the notion of matrilineal succession, it doesn't make any sense to give credence to this theory, which gives Brude no Pictish parentage at all. The many uncertainties about who married whom during this period of shifting political allegiances and interdynastic marriage means that the truth of the matter continues to remain elusive.
Brude died in 693. We're 100 years off the end of the podcast, guys. Ending his life peacefully and naturally rather than in grim three-year battle. His body was brought to Iona, where Abbot Abdunam was stricken by grief. Decided to hold an all-night vigil beside the corpse. According to legend, the vigil was almost over and dawn was break. What? The vigil was almost over and by what? The vigil was almost over and dawn. Okay, I'm an idiot. The vigil was almost over and it was becoming day when the Pictish king began to show signs of life. By the morning, the dead eyes had opened in the presence of a horrified bystander. The fellow, described in the legend of an unsympathetic member of the faithful, warned of dire repercussions if the process was not halted immediately. If this seems likely, he says the dead are being raised by a dominion. I declare that no cleric will be appointed abbot to succeed him unless he too raises the dead. Adonam's response was given with calm understatement. Some implications may indeed be involved here. After giving the matter to due consideration, he added, it'd be more appropriate, let us therefore utter a blessing of the body in the interests of Brude's soul. To the relief of the bystander, the sorrowful abbot halted the resurrection and let fate take its course. In lightly differing versions of the legend, he grieved beside the corpse before blessing Brude's soul. He noted the irony of a powerful, wealthy monarch being entombed in nothing more than a stentorious wooden coffin. It is strange that, after all, he has been the king of the north. Game of Thrones reference. And a bit ambiguous because there's two other northern kingdoms. A hollow stump of withered oak should be about the son of the king of Dumbarton. Behind these stories is the solemn occasion of Brude's burial in the monastic grave of Iona. This hallowed site, which already held the bones of Ecgfith, now became the final resting place of the proud victor of the Necton within 8 years of their battle. These two warlords were reunited in peace on the holy island of Columba.
And then they kissed.
It's kind of funny. Adomin went, guys, stop bringing the dead back to life. Fine. It was just like Brude in a coma. He's like, go right, back to sleep. Just start choking to death. But yeah, that is the end of the longest episode to this date of the History of the Picts podcast. And next week is episode 10, which may be our only big what's the word? What you say? Use?
Penultimate?
No, not ultimate. It's like a checkpoint. Not checkpoint is the word for it. Goal or something. Episode 10. It'd be the first double digits, and most likely in about 2 more episodes, we will probably have covered the fall of Pictavia and the rise of the Scots. And me and Luke have agreed to maybe. Shut up. Me and Luke have agreed to maybe push this towards till the start of the Kingdom of Scotland, because it'd be another 100 or so years during the Kingdom of Alba where they then take the Britons and then Scotland becomes a thing. This seems the most fitting end of the podcast because the Picts do just disappear randomly, but also it's important to think about the Kingdom of Alba, because they were still Picts. They may have been quite more Scotified or Gaelified, but they were still quite clearly Picts in a lot of places where they've still been Pictish in isolation. And when the Kingdom of Scotland kind of became a thing, it also sets up nicely to the Kingdom of Scotland podcast, which is a real thing, and there's no point in making 2 Kingdom of Scotland podcasts because it would take so long to get that done. And that's kind of it for the episode 9 of the Pictish Revolt. A long episode, but I would argue probably our best episode we've made. Huge shout out to Kim Clarkson and Nick Aitchison for helping us get through this.
Genuinely, probably not possible without it.
Yeah. And I know looks tired of reading. Yes. But yeah, I did say after the church it would go really fast.
Yeah, no,
And
that to be fair, that did fly.
yeah. Thank you all for watching. Please, if you're even here, rate us 5 stars on Spotify. If you've listened to this point so far and you've not followed or rated us on
You're a
Spotify,
patriot.
then no. If you've not listened, if
Oh,
you've
no,
not
no.
rated us 5 star podcast and you're this far into it, why are you still here?
Yeah,
It's like
what, you just
episode
here
9, like 10 hours into it, not even 5 stars. Come on.
thoughts on yourself.
Yeah, look, we'd even take a 4 star,
Yeah, you know.
not a 3 star. We'll find you then.
Can't date the perfect record.
Yeah, exactly. I had a funny joke planned in my head for like yesterday when I was writing this script and I forgot it. It was to do with someone. I got a comment. Oh yeah, so we'll do a quick shout out to a viewer and where they're from. We don't know who you are, but I'll go into the so all platforms. We'll do Spotify. We'll do our platforms. Russia. Shout out to our viewers in Moscow. Our one viewer in Moscow who is listening to this on, I think, Overcast or Apple Core Media or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the Swiss.
We just read them all then.
No, but like the strangest ones are Swiss and Australian listeners. Thank you.
I think Australians probably the least, like, it's more normal because like they speak English. I'm gonna argue, like, if I was to look at these countries and like, yeah, what's the most weirdest one?
It's definitely Russia. Russia or Switzerland is bizarre.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. How do you check on my phone? I just turned it off. Germany, I think, is good too. But we've got quite a strong American audience, so this goes really in depth to one place, and America, there's a viewer just to freak them out. And if we do say your name, well, not your name, but your exact house, then please do leave a comment or like. I don't know, because these people are not. The majority of the Russians and the Swiss aren't on Spotify; they're on like Overcast, which I didn't know we were on that. So. Thanks for ripping our podcast off Apple Podcasts and put it on your website.
Hey man, all publicity is good publicity.
No, we don't get paid for it. Shout out to Wisconsin Highlands, the USA viewer. There's at least 2 or 1 of these.
Yep.
That is it for the today's podcast. Please rate us 5 stars, and we'll see you next week for maybe a special episode because it's episode 10.
Yeah.
Most likely not. We might do like a cool little live stream of us playing Total War Britannia because there's the Picts in that. But yeah, that is it for today. Thank you all for watching or listening or not, or in the background and forget we're here.
Yep.
But yeah, do you have anything to say?
Goodbye.
Mog.